Okay, so you know how it is like when you're really trying to push your English to that like advanced level and everything? But then sometimes like listening just feels impossible.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you're in a conversation and then boom, it's just like this whirlwind of words and accents and things and you just completely miss what's going on.
It's like trying to catch smoke.
Yeah, exactly, like smoke. And if that sounds familiar, well then you are so in the right place because this deep dive is all about tackling those listening struggles.
Absolutely.
And we've got this great article that we're going to use as like our roadmap for today. It's called English Common Listening Mistakes and How to Avoid Them.
Perfect title.
I know, right? So our goal basically is to help you move past just like hearing the words to actually understanding what's being said.
Yeah, I love that. Moving beyond just hearing and into actual understanding.
Yeah, totally.
It's a very important distinction, I think.
Yeah. So what I think is so cool about this article is that it's like, it's written specifically for people who are already at like a C1 level in English. Right.
So they're like pretty advanced, but they're still struggling with these specific listening problems.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to acknowledge that, right? Like even at an advanced level, these challenges still exist.
For sure.
So it's not like you reach this magical point where suddenly you understand everything.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yeah, it would be great, but it's a process.
Right.
And I think what's great about this article is that it really breaks down those challenges and offers really practical solutions.
Yeah, it's almost like a cheat sheet.
Okay, like here's the shortcut to better listening.
I love it. Okay, so here's the plan for our deep dive today.
Okay.
We're going to go through each of the like main listening mistakes that the article talks about.
Right.
And then, but even more important, we're going to really unpack the solutions that it gives for overcoming them. So we're going for those like light bulb moments where it just like clicks and you're like, I get it now. And then boom, your listening just gets better.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Let's do it. The first like big obstacle that the article brings up is this thing that I think so many of us do, and I'm definitely guilty of it too.
Okay, tell me.
It's that we try so hard to understand every single word.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a natural instinct.
It really is, right? And you know, like when we're learning a language, especially at the beginning, so much of it is about like vocabulary and grammar, and like breaking things down piece by piece.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, like, real spoken English doesn't really work like that.
Right, like textbooks versus reality.
Totally. Native speakers, they use all these shortcuts, right? Like contractions and slang, and like sometimes they don't even finish their sentences.
Absolutely. And it can be really frustrating if you're trying to catch every single word.
Yeah.
Because it's just not realistic.
It's exhausting.
Right, it's exhausting, and it can actually hinder your understanding.
It's true, because you get so stuck on like trying to figure out that one word.
Yes.
That you miss the whole point of like the sentence or even the whole conversation.
The big picture is lost.
Completely. So what's the solution? What do we do instead of like hyper focusing on every single word?
Well, the article suggests that we need to shift our focus to understanding the overall meaning, like getting the gist.
The gist. Okay, I like that.
Yeah. And if you think about it, it's kind of like when you read.
Okay.
You don't like sound out every single letter to understand a sentence, right?
Right.
You're looking at patterns, you're deducing meaning, and listening is really similar.
So it's more about like recognizing the patterns than getting every little detail.
Exactly. And using context to help you fill in the gaps.
Context. Okay, so like what are the words around that word telling me? What's the topic of the conversation? What's the speaker's tone of voice?
Yeah, all of those things.
Okay, those are good clues. So the article gives us some really good advice on like how to actually practice this.
Right.
It says that we should listen to a bunch of different kinds of audio, like TED Talks, podcasts, news broadcasts.
Yeah, expose yourself to different voices, different topics.
So like variety is key.
Exactly. The more you listen,
the
more you train your brain to adapt.
Okay, and this is a really cool tip.
Yeah, ready.
The article says to use transcripts as a learning tool.
Oh, that's a good one.
So like when you listen to something, especially if it's like a little bit challenging,
right,
go back and look at the transcript and see like, okay, what words did I miss?
Right.
But then more importantly, did I still get the main idea even though I missed those words?
Yeah. Did you understand the essence of the message?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that because it builds confidence too, right?
Totally.
Because you realize, okay, even though I didn't catch every single word, I still understood.
I can still do it.
I can still do it.
Perfect. Okay, so key takeaway number 1.
Don't focus on every single word.
Got it.
Prioritize the overall meaning.
Okay.
Use context.
Yeah.
And work with diverse audio materials and transcripts.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, number 2, this is a big one for me, and I bet a lot of other people too.
Okay, hit me.
Connected speech.
Oh, yeah. The bane of many an English learner's existence.
It's so true. It's like words just blend together and sounds disappear. And then like a word that you know perfectly well suddenly sounds completely different.
Yeah, it's like a magic trick.
Right. So the article, it gives the example of go on.
Yeah.
Which like in real speech often sounds more like guan.
Guan, exactly.
Right. That's so weird.
And it's not just about speed, right? It's about the way sounds are linked together.
Yeah. So it's like the speed plus the linking, that just makes it really tough to like pick out the individual words.
Absolutely.
So the article says that the main solution here is just getting familiar with it.
Right. Familiarization is key.
So like we need to train our ears to recognize these like common links and reductions.
Yeah. It's almost like learning a new code.
Yeah. It's like a secret code.
The code of connected speech.
I like it. Okay. So how do we do that in a practical way?
Well, the article gives us a few suggestions.
Okay.
One is simply listening to lots of natural conversation and paying attention to how the words are connected.
So just like actively noticing.
Yeah. Be mindful of it. Be present with the language.
Yeah.
And then another technique that it mentions is called shadowing.
Shadowing. I like that.
Have you ever tried shadowing?
I've tried it, but I haven't done it consistently.
It's really effective.
It's so cool. It's basically where you listen to audio and then you repeat it almost at the same time.
Yeah, almost simultaneously.
Right.
And it really forces you to pay attention to the rhythm, the intonation, and of course the connected speech patterns.
And it's funny because like you said, it's not about being perfect at first. It's about just like getting a feel for the flow.
It's about embodying the language.
Embodying the language. I love that. Okay, and the article also mentions this really great tip, which is to start with slow speed playback.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic one.
So it's like, you know, when you watch a video in slow motion, you can see like every little detail.
Right, you break it down.
So it's the same with audio. You can actually hear the individual sounds blending together.
Yeah.
And then as you get more comfortable, you can gradually increase the speed back to normal.
It's like training wheels for your ears.
Exactly. Okay, so key takeaway for connected speech is?
Train your ear to recognize how words link together.
Okay.
And use techniques like shadowing and slow speed playback.
Awesome. Okay, next up, accents.
Oh, yes, the beautiful tapestry of English accents.
It's so true. So English being like this huge global language, obviously.
It's everywhere.
There are so many different accents.
It's incredible.
Then the article talks about like, you know, you might hear British English, American English, Australian English, Indian English.
And that's just scratching the surface.
Right. There are so many variations.
And within those categories, there are even more regional variations.
Oh, yeah. It's like accents on accents on accents.
It's a beautiful thing, but it can be really challenging for learners.
Absolutely, because it can feel like you're learning a whole new language almost.
Right, because the pronunciation is different, the intonation is different, and sometimes even the vocabulary is different.
Yeah. So what's the key here? How do we get better at understanding different accents?
Exposure, exposure, exposure.
More exposure.
The more you listen to different accents, the better your brain becomes at processing them.
It's like your brain is building like a database of accents.
Exactly. And it's learning to recognize the patterns and the differences.
So what are some good places to start for getting that exposure?
Well, the article mentions a few resources like BBC Learning English.
Okay, BBC.
NPR, which is National Public Radio in the U.S.
Yeah.
And TED Talks, which of course feature speakers from all over the world.
And those are all great for like different reasons too.
Absolutely. They cover a wide range of topics and they have really high quality audio.
Yeah. Okay, so those are good starting points, but what else can we do?
Well, the article also mentions that you can be more deliberate about seeking out specific accents.
Okay, I like that.
So there are platforms like LingQ and Audible where you can actually choose content based on the speaker's accent.
Oh, that's cool. So you can say like, I want to listen to something with an Australian accent.
Exactly. And you can even find YouTube channels or podcasts from specific countries.
So it's about like actively seeking out those accents that you want to get better at understanding.
Exactly. And even something as simple as watching international news broadcasts can be helpful.
Oh, yeah, because they often have reporters from all over the world.
Right.
So it's like accidental exposure.
Exactly. But it's still beneficial.
Okay, cool. So key takeaway for accents.
Increase your exposure to a variety of English accents.
Okay, got it.
Through different media.
Yeah.
To train your brain to recognize the different pronunciation patterns.
Awesome. Okay, moving right along to another thing that can really trip up even advanced learners.
Ooh, tell me.
Idioms and phrasal verbs.
Oh, yes. These are the spice of the English language.
But they can be so confusing.
They can be tricky, especially if you're trying to understand them literally
Yeah, because they often don't mean what the individual words mean.
Right. It's all about the figurative meaning.
So like the article says, it's really helpful to keep a vocabulary journal.
Yeah, write them down, look them up.
And write down specifically idioms and phrasal verbs.
Absolutely.
Okay. And this is important. Context is everything with these.
Yes, context is king.
The article says that sitcoms and talk shows are really good for this.
Oh, yeah, because they're full of idioms and phrasal verbs.
Because that's how people actually talk, right?
Exactly. It's natural, authentic language.
So you can hear them being used in real situations.
And you can see the body language. You can hear the tone of voice.
Right. So you can kind of figure out the meaning even if you don't know the exact phrase.
Exactly.
Okay. And the article also recommends using flashcard apps.
Oh, yeah, like Anki or Quizlet.
Yeah, those are good for just like regular review and practice.
Keep them fresh in your mind.
Exactly. So it's all about like building up your knowledge of these expressions.
That's like expanding your linguistic toolkit.
Okay, so key takeaway for idioms and phrasal verbs.
Actively learn them.
Okay.
Through context.
Yes.
And dedicated study to understand their non-literal meanings in spoken English.
Perfect. Okay. Next up, we are talking about implied meanings and sarcasm.
Ooh, this is where it gets really interesting.
It does, because now we're going beyond just like the words themselves.
Right, we're talking about subtext.
Subtext.
Like the meaning behind the word.
Okay, so native speakers, they use a lot of indirect language, irony, and sarcasm.
Which is part of the culture.
Yeah, and if you're always taking things literally,
right, at face value,
you're going to miss a lot of what's actually being said.
You'll be very confused.
The article gives the example of someone saying, "Oh, great," in a sarcastic tone of voice.
Which actually means the opposite of great.
Exactly. So how do we get better at understanding these like subtle cues?
Well, the article says it's all about paying attention to the speaker's tone of voice.
Tone of voice? Okay.
And their facial expressions if you're watching a video.
Right.
And it also suggests studying common sarcasm patterns.
Okay, so like, are there certain phrases or ways of saying things that are often sarcastic?
Yeah, exactly. And the more you're exposed to them, the easier it becomes to recognize them.
Okay, and the article also recommends practicing with dialogues that use implied meaning.
Yeah, like find some examples and really analyze them.
So we can see how it works.
And maybe even try some role-playing.
Oh, role-playing. That's a good idea.
Yeah, get into character and experiment with different tones of voice.
I like that, so you can see how the same words can have different meanings depending on how you say them.
Exactly.
Okay, key takeaway for implied meanings and sarcasm.
Pay attention to tone of voice.
Okay.
And context to understand implied meanings and sarcasm in spoken English.
Got it.
And practice recognizing those common patterns. And try some role-playing.
Awesome. Okay, this next one I think is something that almost everyone struggles with.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Losing focus during long conversations.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
You're listening, and then you miss a couple of words, and suddenly
your mind is off to the races.
You're like, wait, what were they talking about?
Totally. And I think it's especially challenging when you're listening in a second language.
It's so true, because your brain is working so hard.
Yeah, it's processing all this information in a language that's not native to you.
So it's easy to get tired and lose focus.
Absolutely. So the article suggestions are all about staying actively engaged.
Active listening.
Active listening. Yeah. One of the tips is to take notes.
Oh, yeah. Even if it's just like keywords.
Right. Just something to keep your mind anchored to the conversation.
Yeah.
And another really good one is to mentally summarize as you listen.
Summarizing? Okay, so like every few minutes you kind of check in with yourself and think, okay, what have they said so far?
Exactly. What's the main point?
Okay.
What are the key ideas? And that forces you to really process the information.
Yeah, instead of just letting it go in one ear and out the other.
Right. Be an active participant in the listening process.
Yeah.
And the article also mentions guided listening exercises.
Okay.
Where you listen to something and then answer comprehension questions.
Oh, yeah. I like those.
They give you a specific purpose for listening.
Right. You have to pay attention.
And it helps you check your understanding.
I love that. Okay, and this is interesting. The article even suggests try meditation or mindfulness practices to improve your overall concentration.
That's a great connection because mindfulness is all about being present.
Right.
And focused. And that can definitely help with listening.
Okay, so key takeaway for staying focused.
Active listening.
Okay.
Take notes, mentally summarize, and consider mindfulness practices to improve your concentration.
Awesome. Okay. Next up, a very specific challenge, but a common one.
Okay, I'm listening.
Confusing similar-sounding words.
Yes, the homophones.
Those tricky little words that sound the same.
But have completely different meanings.
Like the article mentions bear and bear.
Two very different things.
It's true, and if you mix them up, it can get a little awkward.
You might end up with a very strange sentence.
Yeah, so how do we avoid these kinds of misunderstandings?
Well, the article recommends practicing with minimal pairs exercises.
Minimal pairs, what are those?
So those are pairs of words that differ by only one sound.
Like ship and sheep.
Exactly.
Okay.
And by focusing on those tiny differences, you train your ear to be more discriminating.
Okay, so it's about like really fine-tuning your listening.
Yeah, you're becoming a phonetic detective.
I love that. Okay, the article also suggests using phonetic transcriptions.
Yes, those can be very helpful.
Which I know can seem a little intimidating at first.
Right, that's like a whole other alphabet.
Yeah, but it's actually really useful for understanding like the precise pronunciation of words.
Absolutely, and there are lots of online resources that can help you with phonetic transcriptions.
Okay, and those pronunciation guides that you can find on websites like Forvo.
Forvo is great.
Are also really helpful.
Because you can hear different speakers pronounce the same word.
Oh, yeah, so you can hear the subtle differences.
Oh.
Okay, so key takeaway for similar sounding words.
Train your ear to distinguish them.
Okay.
By using minimal pairs exercises and by studying phonetic transcriptions and pronunciation guides.
Perfect. Okay, no, let's get real for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
Because in the real world, listening rarely happens in like a perfectly quiet environment.
No, it's usually chaos.
It's true. So the article talks about how we often have to listen to English conversations with background noise.
Oh yeah, the dreaded background noise.
And it can be so distracting.
It can be really tough, especially for learners, because you're already working hard to process the language.
Right, and then you add in like all these other sounds.
Right, the clatter of dishes, the rumble of traffic, other people talking.
It's a lot.
So the article suggests that we need to actually practice listening with background noise.
Okay, so like how do we do that?
Well, one way is to use apps that simulate real-life listening situations.
Oh, that's cool. So they like add in background noise?
Exactly, and you can adjust the level of noise.
Oh, I like that.
Then you can gradually challenge yourself.
And then there's always the good old-fashioned way, which is just going out into the real world.
Yes, immerse yourself in the soundscape.
So like listening to conversations in a cafe.
Or on the street.
Or at a party.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And try to focus on the conversation you're trying to follow.
Even with all the chaos around you.
Yes. Train your brain to filter out the distractions.
And the article also mentions something that's really important in these situations.
Yeah.
It says to focus on catching keywords.
Oh, yeah, that's key.
Rather than trying to hear every single word.
Because you're probably not going to catch every word.
Right. So it's about being strategic.
Exactly. Listen for the most important information.
Okay, so key takeaway for background noise.
Practice listening with background noise.
Okay.
To train your brain to filter distractions in real-life conversations.
Got it.
And focus on identifying key information.
Awesome. Okay, we're getting close to the end of our list.
I'm excited to hear what's next.
And this one is a classic. It's fast speech.
The dreaded fast talker.
It's true. It can feel like native speakers are just talking a million miles a minute.
And sometimes it feels like they're swallowing half the words.
Right, and it's that combination of the connected speech that we talked about earlier,
right,
plus the natural speed of spoken language.
It's like a double whammy.
Exactly. So the article says that the best way to deal with this is to start slow.
Gradual exposure is key.
So like listen to audio that's a little bit slower than normal speed.
Right, and then gradually increase the speed as you get more comfortable.
So it's about like stretching your brain's ability to process faster speech.
Exactly, and there are lots of ways to do this.
Okay, give me some examples.
One is to watch videos with subtitles at first.
Okay.
And then as you get better, try watching without subtitles.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And there are also speed listening exercises where you can listen to audio at like 1.25x speed or 1.5x speed.
So you're like forcing your brain to keep up.
Exactly, and the more you do it, the easier it gets.
And the article also mentions something really interesting, which is predictive listening.
Predictive listening. Tell me more.
So it's basically where you use the context and the grammar to kind of guess what the speaker might say next.
Yeah, it's like anticipating the next move.
Exactly. And that can really help you when you're listening to fast speech because you're not always starting from scratch.
It's like having a head start.
Right. Okay, so key takeaway for fast speech.
Gradually increase the speed of the audio you listen to.
Okay.
And practice predicting what the speaker will say next.
Awesome. Okay. And last but not least, the final common mistake that the article highlights.
I'm all ears.
It's a lack of exposure to authentic English conversations.
Right, because textbook English is not the same as real English.
It's so true. Those textbook dialogues, they're great for learning the basics.
Absolutely.
But they don't really reflect how people actually talk in real life.
Right. Real conversations are messy and unpredictable and full of slang and idioms.
Exactly. And that's what we need to be exposed to.
So how do we bridge that gap?
Well, the best way, obviously, is to actually have conversations with native speakers.
Yes, get out there and practice.
But if that's not always possible, the article suggests that we can also get this kind of exposure through media.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
So like watching vlogs and reality shows.
Reality TV is a goldmine for authentic language.
I know, right? And listening to radio shows and audiobooks that feature natural dialogue.
Yeah, anything that's unscripted and spontaneous.
Yeah, because that's how people really talk.
Absolutely.
And the article also mentions language exchange platforms.
Oh, yeah, those are great for finding conversation partners.
Yeah, so you can connect with native speakers online and practice your speaking and listening skills.
Like a win-win.
Okay, so key takeaway for authentic conversations.
Seek out and engage with authentic, unscripted English conversations.
Okay.
Through real interactions and diverse media.
I love it. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. It's been quite the journey.
But I think it's been really helpful to go through all of these common mistakes and the solutions that the article gives.
Absolutely. It's all about awareness.
Yeah.
Right? Once you know what the challenges are, you can start to address them.
Exactly. So just to quickly recap, we've talked about focusing too much on individual words.
Yes.
The struggles of connected speech and accents.
Right.
The trickiness of idioms and phrasal verbs.
The hidden meanings of implied language and sarcasm.
Yes. The battle against losing focus.
The confusion of similar sounding words.
The challenge of background noise.
The overwhelming speed of fast speech.
And the importance of authentic English conversations.
It's quite the list.
It is. But the good news is that these are all common challenges.
Even for advanced learners.
So you're not alone.
Not at all.
And even more importantly, the article gives us a bunch of practical strategies to deal with them.
It's a toolkit for success.
I love that. Okay, so as you continue on your English learning journey, remember that improving your listening skills is a process.
It takes time and effort.
But it's so worth it.
Absolutely.
So start experimenting with some of the strategies that we talked about today.
Yes, find what works for you.
Maybe pick one or two that really resonated with you and just focus on those at first.
Small steps lead to big progress.
Exactly. And even just small, consistent effort can make a huge difference.
And don't forget to be patient with yourself.
Yes. Patience is key.
It's a journey, not a race.
I love that. Okay, so on that note, here's a final thought for you to think about.
Okay.
Now that you're aware of these common listening pitfalls,
right,
and you have some strategies for overcoming them, what specific type of English audio will you choose to listen to today?
Ooh.
To challenge yourself and put these new insights into practice?
That's a great question.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Think about it, and more importantly, take action.
Go for it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
Happy listening.
Bye. Okay, so have you ever noticed that when you're trying to follow along with native English speakers, like just in regular everyday situations, you know, like a quick chat with a colleague at work, or if you're grabbing a coffee at a cafe, and it almost feels like sometimes like they're speaking a completely different language. And I don't mean because they're using like big words or super complicated grammar. It's more like those everyday phrases and just the way they put things together. It can be tricky.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people feel that way, and that's exactly what we're going to try to break down for you in this deep dive. We've got a super interesting look at a typical day in the life of someone who grew up speaking English, so it's a great way to get a glimpse into all those natural rhythms and like the subtle cues people use when they're communicating on a daily basis.
Totally. And we're going to be following a guy named James. He's 32 years old, works in marketing. And the source we're using today gives us like a really close look at his whole day, from when his alarm goes off in the morning all the way until he goes to sleep at night. And what makes this even more helpful is that all the information is presented as like real everyday conversations. It's not made up.
Yeah, and the interesting part here is how much meaning is packed into these like seemingly simple exchanges. So our goal is to kind of dissect these moments to really point out common phrases and those habitual routines that James goes through. We'll also point out all those like little social cues that are kind of woven into the fabric of everyday English.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll have learned something super practical. You'll be able to recognize these patterns better and understand like the unspoken elements of these interactions. And that can help you listen better, comprehend more, and even feel way more confident when you're having conversations in English yourself. So are you ready to jump into James's morning?
Definitely so. It all starts with that familiar sound for a lot of us, the 6:30 a.m. alarm clock. And James's first reaction is super relatable. You know, that sleepy, already. Followed by him hitting the snooze button, of course.
Oh, the snooze button. The universal symbol for just 5 more minutes. But even in that first moment, we hear something interesting. When the alarm goes off again, he's like, all right, I'm up. It's not formal at all. It's casual, maybe even a little bit reluctant. It's a great example of how most of us ease ourselves into the day, you know?
Yeah, and you're right, that is subtle but important. All those little interjections, like that drawn out, oh, right, it really adds a lot to the natural feel of how we speak. But then the digital world comes calling, because right away he checks his phone and sees a message from his coworker, Emily, reminding him about a client meeting at 10 a.m.
Yeah, and he keeps his reply short and sweet. Got it, thanks for the reminder. It's quick, polite, and it's basically the kind of confirmation you'd expect in a work setting. No need for a long, drawn-out response or any super formal language.
Right, it shows that professional communication can be very direct when the message is clear. No need to overcomplicate things. So then James makes his way to the kitchen to make breakfast. And we actually get a little peek into his thoughts. He thinks to himself, all right, let's see, eggs, toast, and coffee. That should do it.
You know, I find it interesting that even his inner monologue is phrased in such a natural way. Like, you can almost hear him saying it out loud. It really does highlight how closely our thoughts and our everyday language are connected. And just then, his roommate, Mark, walks in. He greets James with a very typical morning greeting. Morning, man, you're up early.
And notice he uses that casual term, man. It's a really common way for guys who are friends or roommates to address each other. And then James explains that he has a meeting. And almost immediately, he offers Mark some coffee. He's like, yeah, I got a big meeting today. Want some coffee? The perfect example of how we blend giving information with a little bit of social politeness.
And Mark keeps things simple with a polite, that would be great, thanks. And that's just standard everyday politeness. It's something you hear all the time. Then they have a bit of small talk while they're drinking their coffee. Mark starts by asking, so any big plans for the weekend?
Yeah, and that's just such a common way to kick off a casual chat. You know, keep it light, open-ended, and a good way to find something to talk about. James's response is just as typical. Not really. Might catch a movie or just relax. He keeps his options open and then turns the question right back to Mark to keep the conversation moving.
Then Mark throws out an idea, thinking about going hiking. You should come. Just a casual invitation, not pushy at all. And James's response, sounds fun, I'll let you know, is such a good example of how we can be indirect in English. It's a polite way to acknowledge the invitation without having to commit fully on the spot.
Exactly, I'll let you know is a classic way of saying maybe without having to give a definite yes or no. And it's perfect for those times when you don't want to commit one way or another right away. After that, we fast forward through James getting ready. He takes a shower, gets dressed, grabs his bag, and as he's heading out the door, he does one of those mental checklists. All right, wallet, keys, phone, good to go.
And again, that casual good to go just means ready or all set. Not stiff or formal at all. It's a relaxed way of saying I'm prepared. So then our source tells us that James walks to the subway station. That means it's time for his commute.
And the commute itself is interesting because it shows how a lot of us multitask during our commutes, like listening to podcasts, checking emails.
Yeah.
And that's when James bumps into a colleague, Sarah.
And her greeting is something you'll hear everywhere. Hey, James, how's it going? Super friendly and usually expects a short and positive response. You wouldn't normally launch into a big explanation of your morning unless you were really close to that person.
Yeah, you're right. And James does exactly that. He's like, hey, Sarah, I'm good. Just gearing up for that client meeting. He acknowledges her, gives her a brief positive update, and mentions that meeting, which kind of gives her context for how his morning is going.
Right, and Sarah follows up with a question showing that she already knows what's on his schedule. Oh yeah, the 10 a.m. one, are you ready for it? It's a natural way to build on his comment and show that she's paying attention.
And James's answer is a good example of showing that he's prepared without sounding overconfident.
I think so. I went over the notes last night. That little I think so makes it sound more realistic, you know, because most people aren't absolutely 100% sure about everything.
And then Sarah offers some support. Nothing major, but it means a lot. Nice, I'll back you up if you need anything. It really shows how people at work look out for each other and want to help. Definitely. And James's short reply, appreciate it, is the perfect way to show that he accepts her offer. The source mentions that they keep chatting about work until they reach their stop, which shows how commutes can often be a time for those informal work-related conversations. You know, a time for people to connect.
So now James arrives at the office, and right away he greets Lisa, the receptionist. Morning, Lisa. Super simple, polite, and to the point.
And Lisa greets him back and asks about that meeting. Good morning, James. Ready for your meeting? It seems like maybe it's a big deal at the office, or at least something they've talked about before.
And James's response is kind of funny. As ready as I'll ever be. It's that slightly self-deprecating humor that you hear all the time in English. It's like a way of saying, I'm as prepared as I can be without bragging or sounding stressed.
It's a really good way to connect with people by sharing in that feeling of anticipation, or maybe even a little bit of nervousness, but in a lighthearted way. So then, James heads to his desk, turns on his computer, checks his email, the classic start to the workday for many, and that's when his boss, Mr. Anderson, pops by.
And Mr. Anderson's opening line is really standard and polite, especially for someone in a management position. James, got a minute. It gives James a chance to say if he's in the middle of something important.
And James's reply is just as typical and professional. Of course, what's up? Then Mr. Anderson gives him a heads up about a question the client might ask. Just wanted to remind you that the client might ask about next quarter's projections. Be sure to touch on that.
And James's reply is a great example of how to acknowledge new information at work. Got it. Thanks for the heads up. It's clear, to the point, and it shows that he appreciates the reminder. And heads up itself is a super useful informal term for a warning or reminder. You'll hear it a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So the source mentions that the meeting at 10 a.m. went well, the client seemed happy. Sounds like all that preparation paid off.
Great news for James. Now let's move on to his lunch break. He and Sarah head over to a cafe nearby, and there's a short but important interaction with the cashier.
And the cashier's greeting is like something out of a textbook. Hi there, what can I get for you today? It's the standard opening you hear in almost any kind of service setting, and James's order is straightforward and polite. I'll have a turkey sandwich and an iced coffee, please. Notice that he uses I'll have, which is really common for ordering food.
And the cashier keeps things moving along, sure. And for you, Sarah's order follows the same polite and clear style. I'll take the Caesar salad and a lemonade. I'll take is another super common way to order things.
Once they're sitting at their table, they naturally start talking about that big meeting. Sarah asks, so what did you think of the meeting? It's a normal way to debrief after a shared work experience, exchange perspectives.
And James's answer is positive, but you can tell he's still being a little bit cautious, like earlier. I think it went well. The client seemed happy. That part about the client being happy is really key in James's line of work.
And Sarah offers some praise, which is a really good way to build up those good vibes with colleagues. Yeah, you handled their questions really well. That kind of positive feedback helps strengthen relationships at work.
And James's thanks is a perfectly appropriate response to a compliment in this kind of situation. Then he turns the conversation back to Sarah. So, how's your project going? It shows that he's interested in what she's working on, not just his own stuff.
And Sarah gives a really common answer. Busy, but good. I have a deadline coming up. You hear that a lot at work, right?
Yeah.
It acknowledges that there's pressure, but still keeps things positive.
And James jumps in with an offer to help. If you need any help, let me know. It's another great example of how people at work support each other.
And Sarah's appreciate it. Wraps up that little exchange nicely. So after lunch, James heads back to the office. And the source mentions he gets a text message from Mark at around 3 p.m.
Mark's text is short and casual. Hey, don't forget we're meeting at the bar after work. It's just a typical informal reminder between friends.
And James's reply is just as short. Of course. Looking forward to it. He confirms he'll be there and shows he's excited about it. Looking forward to it is a really useful phrase for expressing that you're happy about something in the future.
Then the source tells us James finishes up his work and packs his bag. It's the end of the workday, and now we move into the evening. Time to relax and hang out with friends.
James meets Mark and some other friends at a bar. Mark greets him enthusiastically. There he is. How was work? It's a super common way for friends to greet each other after a long day.
James gives a brief, positive summary. Not bad. Meeting went well. Then one of their friends says, nice, let's celebrate. What are you drinking? That let's celebrate really captures the fun, social vibe.
And James keeps his order simple. I'll take a beer. It's a classic choice for that kind of setting. The source says they all spend some time chatting, joking, and having a good time. Just that kind of easygoing social interaction that's part of a lot of people's evenings.
After a couple of hours, James decides to head home. All right, guys, I'm calling it a night. It's a really common way to say you're leaving without making a big deal out of it.
And Mark tries to get him to stay a bit longer. In a playful way. Already, come on, one more drink. It's typical for friends to try and get you to hang out a little longer.
But James has a good reason to leave. Nah, I have an early morning. Catch you later. Catch you later is a relaxed way to say goodbye, implying you'll see them again soon.
The source then mentions the usual routine of James getting home, taking a cab, paying the driver, going inside. All those little everyday things we often don't even think about.
And finally, we see James unwinding at home, watching TV and scrolling through social media. He has that thought, let's see what's new today. It's a scene that so many of us can relate to. It really shows how we use our downtime to relax and unplug.
Yeah, definitely. And to wrap things up, he sets his alarm, turns off the lights, and goes to sleep. It brings his day full circle, ending in the same way it started.
So as we look back at James's day, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? You know, the people who are trying to improve their understanding of how native speakers communicate in these everyday scenarios.
I think the biggest thing is just how much natural, casual language gets used in even the simplest interactions. We've heard so many examples, from greetings and goodbyes to talking with coworkers in a way that's both professional and friendly. And then those social interactions that are full of jokes and subtle cues.
Absolutely. From that first sleepy, already, to that relaxed catch you later at the end of the night. These little snippets of conversation aren't just random words. They tell you a lot about the tone, help build relationships, and keep things flowing smoothly. It's the kind of language that you might not always find in textbooks, but it's crucial for understanding and participating in real conversations.
Yeah, and if we think about your goals as a listener, following James throughout his day gives you a practical and relatable way to hear all these nuances. You're not just memorizing words from a list, you're seeing how real people use those words in real situations, which is way more effective for boosting your comprehension and your confidence.
It's like unlocking the code of everyday English. So as you go about your day, try paying attention to the conversations happening around you. Think about your routines and the types of conversations you have, and ask yourself how you could express those same things in English, maybe even using some of those phrases we heard from James.
Here's something to think about. Beyond just the words and grammar, what did you learn about the culture of speaking English in a professional setting from observing James's day? Think about how formal or informal he is with different people, those subtle ways he shows he's being polite, and how he builds and maintains those connections. What was the most interesting thing that stood out to you? And how could you maybe use those observations to improve your communication skills?
You know, it's amazing how much we can actually say with just a handful of words, right? Like, especially when those words come together to form an idiom, it's like having a secret code almost, you know? Like you unlock this deeper level of meaning and connection beyond just like the surface of the words themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like tapping into this shared knowledge, this cultural understanding, and you can get across these really complex ideas, but like in a really concise way.
Yeah.
And that's what makes idioms so powerful. I mean, they're everywhere in how native speakers talk.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today, this world of like advanced English idioms, the kind of phrases that you hear native speakers using all the time. Think of it like you're getting the VIP pass to fluency.
Exactly. You got to move past just knowing what the words mean in the dictionary. You got to grasp what they actually imply, you know, the feeling, but cultural context.
So in this deep dive, we're going to explore a whole bunch of these advanced idioms. And to make it easier on Jan, we've kind of grouped them into these different categories. And for each one, we'll break down like what it means, why it works, and how it brings, you know, that extra layer of meaning to the conversation. And of course, we'll give you plenty of real life examples.
By the end of this, you'll have a really solid grasp of some key advanced idioms, ones that you can start recognizing and maybe even using yourself.
All right, so let's get this show on the road. We'll kick things off with idioms that you're likely to bump into just, you know, in everyday situations. The first one we're tackling is bite the bullet.
Bite the bullet is a pretty colorful way of saying to endure a tough situation, you know, something painful or difficult, but facing it with courage. You're not backing down, you're not complaining, just taking it head on.
Right, like saying, I really didn't want to redo that whole report, but I just had to bite the bullet and get it done. Oh, and we even have a little conversation snippet for you.
Oh.
So picture this Emma sighs and says, ugh, I've been putting off this dentist appointment for weeks. I know I need a root canal.
Oof. Yeah, that's a tough one.
And Jake says, yeah, it's probably not going to be fun, but sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and get it over with. You'll feel better once it's done.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's interesting about bite the bullet. There's this possible link to like battlefield medicine. Imagine back in the day before proper anesthesia, a soldier might actually bite down on a bullet to deal with the pain of surgery.
Wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's pretty intense imagery.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It really underlines the idea of just pushing through serious discomfort without flinching.
Wow, that historical context really adds another dimension to it. Now think about yourself for a second. Can you remember a time when you had to face something really unpleasant? Something you were totally dreading, but you knew you had to just bite the bullet and go through it? I mean, we've all been there, right? It's part of life.
It is. And that's what makes this idiom so relatable. You know, we all get that feeling of having to just push through tough times.
Okay, let's move on to the next idiom in our everyday situations category. We've got hit the nail on the head.
Ah, yes, hit the nail on the head. This one means you're describing something perfectly. You're identifying the root cause of a problem, or you're just spot on with your assessment of a situation. It's about pinpoint accuracy.
Like if someone said, when she pointed out our marketing strategy was outdated, she really hit the nail on the head.
Exactly.
Oh, and here's another little conversation snippet.
Let's hear it.
Tom's super frustrated and says, I can't figure out why our website traffic is down. And Lisa's like, have we thought about maybe our social media engagement has dropped off? And Tom's like, you know what, you hit the nail on the head. They're probably connected.
It's funny, right? You can almost picture someone like perfectly striking a nail with a hammer.
Yeah.
No hesitation, no missing the mark.
It really captures that feeling of being absolutely right.
It's more than just agreeing, It's like acknowledging that someone has diagnosed the problem perfectly.
Has there ever been a time when someone just nailed it when describing a problem you were dealing with?
Oh, for sure. And it feels so validating when that happens, like you're finally understood.
Totally. It's like they haven't just guessed right. They've identified the exact point of failure. And that can be super helpful for moving forward.
Absolutely. It often helps you find a better solution.
Okay, so our last idiom in this everyday situations group is the ball is in your court.
Ah, yes. The ball is in your court. This one means it's your turn to act. You're the one who needs to make the next move or decision. The responsibility is all yours.
Like saying, I've sent you all the documents, now the ball is in your court. Just let me know what you decide.
Perfect example.
And we've got another little chat here. Steve asked Linda, so are we going to move forward with the merger? And Linda's like, I've done all my research and given you my feedback. The ball is in your court now, Steve. It's your call.
It's so clear, right? Like you can imagine a tennis match or basketball game where the ball is literally in one player's possession and everyone's waiting for their move.
Right, there's this definite handover of responsibility.
It's very clear who's got the next move.
Can you think of a time when you finished your part of something and then it was like, okay, ball's in their court now? It's such a common phrase for situations where things happen in sequence.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's this element of anticipation, sometimes even pressure, depending on, how important the decision is.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and head into the world of work and business. The first idiom on our list is back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. That one means your first attempt at something didn't work out, so you got to start over, often with a new plan or a totally different approach. And of course, the drawing board is where you create those initial designs and plans.
So the investors didn't like our business plan, so it's back to the drawing board to rework our strategy.
Yep, classic example.
And here's a little workplace chat for you. Mark walks up to Sophia looking all defeated and says, well, the client didn't go for our proposal. And Sophia's like, okay, that's a bummer, but it just means back to the drawing board. Time to come up with something even better. Let's brainstorm.
I love that Sophia's staying positive.
She's got the right attitude, right?
Really.
So the idea of literally going back to where the plans were first made, that really emphasizes the need for a fresh start.
It suggests that those first ideas just weren't going to cut it.
It's not about just tweaking things. It's about maybe scrapping the whole thing and coming up with something completely new. Can you remember a time in your career or maybe even a personal project where you hit a wall and it was like, all right, back to the drawing board?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It can be frustrating, but sometimes it's the only way to get things right.
It's a chance to learn from your mistakes and ultimately come up with something stronger and more effective.
All right, next up, in our work and business idioms, we have throw in the towel. Throw in the towel. This is a pretty dramatic way of saying I give up or I admit defeat. You're basically waving the white flag, especially when you're up against a massive challenge or, the odds are stacked against you.
Yeah. It's like in boxing when a fighter's corner throws a towel into the ring to signal they can't go on anymore.
Exactly.
And we've got a good example here. After months of trying to meet these impossible deadlines, Sarah decided to throw in the towel and find a less demanding job.
I don't blame her.
And here's a little conversation. John's super stressed out and tells Emily, I've been working on this code for days and I'm getting nowhere. I don't think I can fix it. And Emily's like, hey, come on, don't throw in the towel just yet. Let's take another look at it together. Maybe a fresh perspective will help.
I love that Emily's encouraging him to keep going.
She's a good friend. So throwing in the towel really means you've reached your limit. You feel like you can't keep going and you're ready to just give up. It's like the last resort.
It is. It's that point where your resilience is really being tested.
Have you ever felt that urge to just throw in the towel on something, like when you're hitting obstacle after obstacle?
Of course. It's human nature to want to give up when things get really tough. But sometimes you just got to push through.
Totally. All right, our last idiom for work and business is think outside the box.
Think outside the box.
Yeah.
Everyone loves this one.
It's a classic.
It means you got to be creative, you got to be innovative. Don't just stick with the usual ideas and the obvious solutions. Come up with something fresh, something original.
Like if we want to really shake things up in the market, we need to think outside the box and create a product that's unlike anything else out there.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
And here's a scenario for you. It's a team meeting and the manager's like, our marketing campaigns aren't performing as well as they used to. We need new ideas, people. And a team member's like, maybe we should try something totally different, like some interactive online stuff or even guerrilla marketing. We got to think outside the box.
I love it. So think outside the box is all about breaking free from those limitations.
Yeah, like challenging the status quo.
Exactly. Be open to ideas that might seem a little weird or unconventional at first.
When have you had to really come up with some innovative solutions? When did you have to think outside the box?
Oh, all the time. And that's often when the best ideas happen, when you're forced to get creative.
For sure. Okay, so now let's step into the world of social situations.
Yeah.
And our first idiom here is the very descriptive, spill the beans.
Spill the beans. This one means you're revealing a secret, usually by accident, or maybe you let it slip a bit too soon.
Now, we were planning a surprise party for John, but his sister spilled the beans when she mentioned it in front of him.
Oops.
Classic slip-up.
And here's a little social interaction for you. Emma asks Sophia, why is Mark been acting so strange lately? Are you hiding something from me? And Sophia's trying to be all mysterious, but she eventually caves and says, okay, fine, I'll spill the beans. He's going to propose to Jessica.
Oh, that's exciting. So the image of beans scattering everywhere,
Like you can't put them back in the bag. Exactly. It's a perfect way to describe a secret getting out. And it usually happens in a way that's hard to control. It's not usually done maliciously, though, right?
No, it's more like the slip of the tongue.
Like you didn't mean to do it.
Have you ever spilled the beans about something? Or maybe had someone spill the beans to you?
Of course. It happens to everyone.
It's a pretty common social mishap. All right, next up, we've got go the extra mile.
Go the extra mile. This one means you're putting in more effort than what's expected. You're going above and beyond to achieve something or to help someone out.
Like, our neighbor really went the extra mile when our car broke down. They drove us to work every day.
Ah, that's really kind.
And in this little conversation, David says to Tom, Lisa stayed late every night this week to make sure the presentation was perfect. And Tom's like, yeah, that's Lisa for you. She always goes the extra mile.
I love that. It shows dedication, and initiative.
It's about that willingness to do more than just the bare minimum.
It shows you really care about the outcome.
Think about the people in your life who always go the extra mile. What kind of impact do they have? It's often those people who make a real difference, right?
Absolutely. They go above and beyond, and that creates strong bonds and leads to success.
Okay, our last idiom for social situations is hit it off.
Hit it off. This one's all about that instant connection you feel with someone you meet. It's like you click right away, you have great rapport, the conversation flows naturally.
Like, I was a little nervous about meeting my new roommate, but we hit it off immediately, and now we're great friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
And here's a little snippet. Rachel's asking Paul about meeting a new colleague, and Paul's all excited and says, it was fantastic. We hit it off right away. We have so much in common.
It's that feeling of instant chemistry,
Yeah.
Like you're on the same wavelength.
You just get each other.
And that could be the start of great friendships and collaborations.
Can you remember a time when you met someone new and you just hit it off?
Oh, yeah. Many times. It makes building new relationships so much easier and more enjoyable.
It takes the pressure off. Okay, so now we're entering a bit more challenging territory. We're talking about idioms that describe difficult situations. And first up, we have through thick and thin.
Through thick and thin. This one signifies the deep loyalty and support you have for someone. It means you're there for them through good times and bad times, through challenges and successes. Your commitment is unwavering no matter what.
Aw, that's so sweet.
It is.
Like they've been married for 50 years and have supported each other through thick and thin.
What a beautiful example.
And here's a little conversation. Emma says to Jake, "Thank you for always being there for me, no matter what." And Jake's like, "Of course, Emma. That's what friends do. We stick together through thick and thin."
It's such a powerful expression of a strong bond.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it evokes that image of enduring those tough times together, but also celebrating the good times together. It shows an unbreakable connection.
Who are the people in your life who stood by you through thick and thin? Those are the relationships that really matter.
They are. They give you a sense of security knowing that you're not alone no matter what life throws your way.
Okay, our next idiom for navigating tough times is between a rock and a hard place.
Ooh, between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
This one describes those situations where you're stuck between two really difficult choices. Like there's no easy way out. Both options have downsides.
It's a classic dilemma.
It is.
A good example is I was offered a promotion, which meant more money, but also way longer hours. So I felt like I was between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, I can relate to that.
And here's a little scenario. Sarah's telling Mike about a tough decision she's facing. "I don't know what to do. If I stay in my current job, I'm not getting paid enough. But if I move to this new city for a better opportunity, I'll be far from my family." And Mike's like, "That's rough, Sarah. You're really between a rock and a hard place."
It's that feeling of being trapped, right? Like there's no escape.
Yeah.
And it can be so stressful.
Have you ever been in a situation where you felt totally stuck like that?
Of course. We all have. And sometimes you just have to pick the least bad option because there's no perfect solution.
All right, our last idiom for difficult situations is cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase. This means get straight to the point. Don't waste time with unnecessary details or small talk. Just tell me what's important.
Like, we don't have much time, so let's cut to the chase and discuss the main issues.
Exactly. It's all about being efficient and direct.
And here's a little exchange. A boss is looking at their watch and says to an employee, "We're on a tight deadline here. What's the bottom line?" And the employee is like, "Okay, I'll cut to the chase. We're facing a major budget shortfall."
So it's about respecting everyone's time and making sure the important information gets across quickly.
In what kind of situations do you find yourself saying, cut to the chase? I feel like it's super common in work settings or anytime you're pressed for time.
Oh, for sure. It shows that you value everyone's time and that you want to get things done efficiently.
Okay, so now let's talk about some idioms that relate to success and failure. And the first one is pretty interesting. It's a blessing in disguise.
A blessing in disguise. This one refers to something that seems bad or unlucky at first, but then turns out to have a positive outcome.
Like losing that job I hated ended up being a blessing in disguise because it pushed me to start my own business.
Exactly. Sometimes what seems like a setback is actually an opportunity in disguise.
And here's a little story. Tom's telling Lisa, "I was so bummed when my flight got canceled, but then I met this incredible person at the airport and we've been dating ever since." And Lisa's like, "Wow, that's a total blessing in disguise."
It's all about finding those silver linings right.
Can you think of a time when something bad happened, but looking back, you realize it was actually a blessing in disguise?
Oh yeah, definitely. It just goes to show that things aren't always what they seem.
And that sometimes adversity can lead to unexpected opportunities. Okay, next up we have burn the midnight oil.
Burn the midnight oil. This one means you're working or studying late into the night. You're sacrificing sleep to get things done, meet a deadline, or prepare for something big.
Like, I had to burn the midnight oil to finish this presentation for tomorrow morning.
We've all been there.
And here's a little conversation. Alex sees Nina looking super tired and asks, "You look exhausted. What have you been up to?" And Nina's like all yawning, "I've been burning the midnight oil all week, studying for finals."
Oh yeah, those late night study sessions. So it paints this picture of working when everyone else is asleep.
It shows dedication and hard work.
And sometimes it's necessary to get things done.
Have you ever had to burn the midnight oil to finish a project or get ready for something important?
Absolutely. And it's exhausting, but there's also a sense of accomplishment when you finally finish.
Totally. All right, our final idiom for today is jump on the bandwagon.
Jump on the bandwagon. This one means you're joining a trend or a movement because it's popular or seems like it's going to be successful.
Like with electric cars becoming so popular, everyone's jumping on the bandwagon and buying one.
Yeah, it's like following the crowd.
And here's a little observation. Tom says to Lisa, "It seems like everyone I know is suddenly investing in cryptocurrency." And Lisa's like, "Yeah, it's a total bandwagon effect."
So it's about that fear of missing out.
Right? Like you don't want to be the only one not doing it.
And sometimes it's not even about genuine interest. It's just about fitting in.
What trends have you seen people jumping on lately? It happens with everything from technology to fashion to, social causes.
It's a fascinating social phenomenon. Right? We're all influenced by what other people are doing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that learning these advanced idioms isn't just about expanding your vocabulary.
Right.
It's about gaining a deeper understanding of how native English speakers communicate.
It's about understanding those subtle nuances, the implied meanings, the cultural references.
And it's about expressing yourself in a more authentic and engaging way. So we encourage you to start noticing these idioms in everyday conversations.
See if you can spot them.
And maybe even try using a few yourself. It'll boost your fluency and your confidence.
And think about this. By actively listening for and understanding these idioms, you're not just improving your language skills, you're connecting with native speakers on a deeper level. You're getting a glimpse into their cultural mindset.
And that brings us to our final thought for today. Beyond the idioms we've discussed, what other subtle aspects of language do you think are important for truly understanding and connecting with others? Maybe it's the tone of voice, the use of humor, the shared cultural knowledge. It's something to think about. Language is a powerful tool, and there's always more to learn and explore.
Okay, so you're learning English, you've got the grammar down pat, you've got like a vocabulary that's out of this world, you're practically at like C1 level.
Yeah.
But then you put on a movie and bam!
Yeah.
You're struggling to keep up with what they're saying.
Yeah, it can be tricky, right?
It is. It is. And forget those textbooks for a sec, because today we are diving into something way more fun.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be good.
We're talking movies and TV shows and how they could be like secret weapons for not just like boosting your English listening skills, but like really getting those little cultural things you only pick up from real life conversations. And by the end of this deep dive, we want you guys to be able to turn on your favorite show and learn without even like realizing you're studying.
Yeah. Exactly. No more feeling like it's homework, just pure enjoyment and learning happening naturally at the same time.
We've actually been digging deep into this awesome guide all about using movies and TV to supercharge your listening comprehension. What's so cool about it is that it focuses on using like authentic stuff, like real conversations and how people actually talk, not that simplified stuff you get in some textbooks.
Totally. Okay, so let's get down to business. Our source is basically saying that watching just any movie or show isn't going to magically make you a listening pro. So what should we be focusing on then?
Well, they suggest checking out certain types of shows where the English is usually pretty clear and, easy to follow. Like sitcoms, for example.
Sitcoms. Everyone loves a good sitcom.
Right. Friends, How I Met Your Mother, The Big Bang Theory, all those classics. They use everyday language, and a lot of the humor depends on you picking up on the little things people say. Plus, since they usually stick to familiar situations, it kind of helps your brain get ready for what they're going to say. It's true. You start to pick up on those patterns and little nuances, so it's not just about the laughs. It's actually pretty educational.
Exactly. Then there are drama series, which are great too, like Breaking Bad or The Crown. The dialogue is a bit more structured there. Plus, the story keeps you hooked even if you miss a word or two.
Okay, so sitcoms, dramas, anything else?
News programs or documentaries are fantastic for learning too. Think like Planet Earth or The Social Dilemma. The people talking usually speak pretty clearly and at a good pace. It's a great way to start training your ear for different accents and tones. But here's the big thing, and this is something the guide really stresses. It's got to be something you actually enjoy watching.
Makes sense. If you're bored out of your mind, your brain's not going to absorb anything.
Exactly. So think about what genres really grab you, what stories you just can't get enough of.
Right. I think this is a good point to bring up another suggestion from our source. Starting with stories you already know. Like maybe it's a book you've read or a movie you've seen before. That way you don't have to work so hard to understand the plot and can just relax and focus on the English being spoken.
It's all about reducing that mental overload so you can really tune in to the language. And speaking of tuning in, our guide emphasizes how crucial subtitles are, at least in the beginning. Ideally, you'd have access to both English subtitles and subtitles in your native language.
Subtitles, yeah, they're super helpful. But you can't just rely on them forever, can you?
Yeah.
How do we use them in a smart way so we actually get better at listening in the long run?
You're right. Subtitles are a tool, not a crutch. So how do we use them wisely? The guide recommends starting with English subtitles. This way, you're reading and hearing the words at the same time, and that helps your brain link the spoken word with the written word. Makes it easier to recognize words and phrases later on.
So it's like training your brain to actually hear those words, not just see them.
Exactly. But don't get too comfortable with them. The next step is to ditch those subtitles gradually. This pushes your brain to really depend on what you hear, not just what you read.
I can see how that would work. But what about those moments where you're completely lost?
The guide suggests only using subtitles in your native language if it's something really complex that you just can't understand otherwise. But try to resist the temptation to use them all the time. Remember, the goal is to get your ears used to the English itself.
So English subtitles first, then slowly wean yourself off and use native language subtitles only in emergencies. Got it.
You got it. Now let me tell you about this super cool technique. It's called the two-pass method.
Two-pass. Sounds intriguing.
So basically, you watch a scene or a whole episode with English subtitles first. This is like your first pass. The goal here is to get the main idea, like what's happening in the story and all that.
Okay, first pass, understand the story. What's the second pass?
Second pass, you watch that same part again, but this time, no subtitles.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Since you already know what's going on, you can focus all your energy on listening to the English itself. It really reinforces what you've learned.
Smart. It's like giving your brain a second chance to really soak up those sounds. So we talked about picking the right shows and how to use subtitles like a pro. What are some other things we can do while we're watching to actively improve our listening?
The key here is to become an active listener. Don't just sit there and passively watch. Engage with what you're hearing. One of the best ways to do this is by taking notes.
Ah, good old note-taking.
Yep. When you hear a new word or phrase, jot it down along with its meaning in that context. It's like creating your own personalized vocabulary list. And then, try to use those new words in your own conversations or writing later on. It'll stick in your brain much better that way.
That's such a simple but effective tip. It turns watching TV into a vocabulary building session.
Exactly. Another trick is to pause and repeat sections that are tough. Don't just let them fly by. Hit that pause button, rewind, and listen a few times. It helps you break down those fast-talking moments and those connected sounds that can trip up even advanced learners.
That's great advice, because sometimes it feels like those actors are speaking a mile a minute.
Right. And there's this other technique called shadowing. Have you ever tried that?
Shadowing? I'm not sure I have. What is that?
It's basically repeating what the actors are saying almost at the same time as they're saying it. Like you're their shadow. It's amazing for improving your pronunciation, your intonation. That's the rise and fall of your voice and even your overall fluency.
So you're not just listening, you're actually mimicking how they speak.
Precisely. You're trying to match their rhythm and the way they say things. And finally, try predicting what a character might say next based on what's going on in the scene. It sharpens your listening and keeps your brain actively engaged.
Okay, so we're taking notes, we're pausing, we're shadowing, we're predicting. Anything else?
Oh yeah, one more thing. Accents.
Ah, accents. That's something a lot of English learners struggle with, right?
It's true. There are so many different accents out there. But movies and TV can help you get used to all those different ways of speaking English. The guide recommends starting with what it calls standard accents, like American and British English, because those are usually what you hear in most learning materials. But then it encourages you to branch out and listen to all sorts of regional accents, too.
So, branching out. What are some good examples?
Well, for British accents, shows like The Crown, Sherlock, or even Peaky Blinders are great. Although, fair warning, the Birmingham accent in Peaky Blinders might take some getting used to. If you're interested in Australian accents, Bluey is a fun one, and Harrow is a good drama. For American accents, the choices are endless. Breaking Bad, Stranger Things, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you name it. And if you want to try Irish or Scottish accents, Derry Girls and Outlander are perfect.
That's a great list. And if you encounter an accent that's just too hard to understand, the guide suggests using transcripts to help you decode those unfamiliar sounds.
Exactly. And we talked about shadowing earlier, but it's worth emphasizing again. Mimicking native speakers, like really trying to copy the way they say things, is one of the most powerful things you can do to improve both your listening and your pronunciation.
Okay, let's rewind a bit and break down speech shadowing. How do we do it right?
The guide has a great step-by-step method. You pick a short clip from a show, maybe 30 to 60 seconds long. Then you listen to it a few times. Really pay attention to how they pronounce each word, the tone of their voice, and their intonation, which is like the melody of their speech.
So it's not just about understanding the words, it's about understanding how they're spoken.
Precisely. Once you've listened a few times, you start repeating what they say, trying to match their speed and rhythm as closely as possible. And here's a cool trick. Record yourself doing it, and then compare your recording to the original. It helps you pinpoint where you can improve.
Wow, that's really hands-on and practical. I love it.
Right. Now, beyond just watching and listening actively, our guide also talks about using more interactive ways to learn with movies and TV.
Interactive learning with movies and TV. Tell me more.
So it's about taking that extra step to really make the information stick. One way is to turn scenes into mini quizzes. After watching a scene, try summarizing it in your own words, either out loud or in writing. You can even make up questions about the scene to test yourself.
Like turning your living room into a classroom.
Exactly. Another idea is to join online discussions about the shows you're watching. There are tons of places online where people chat about movies and TV, like Reddit, Facebook groups, or even in the comment sections of language learning apps. It's a great way to see what others think and to clear up any confusing parts.
It's like having a virtual study group for your favorite shows.
And speaking of apps, did you know there are special apps designed for learning with TV shows? Some popular ones are LingQ, Yabla, and Fluent2. These apps have interactive subtitles, so you can click on words you don't know, see their definitions, and even add them to your personal vocabulary lists. It's super convenient.
That's amazing. It really shows how technology can make learning so much easier and more fun. But even with all these cool strategies, consistency is key.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The guide stresses that consistency is super important. They suggest aiming for at least 20 to 30 minutes of English TV or movies every single day.
That seems manageable.
It is. And another tip is to stick with a particular series for a while. As you get to know the characters and their way of talking, it becomes so much easier to understand them.
So getting familiar with their speech patterns is key.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to rewatch your favorite episodes or even entire series. You'll be surprised how much you pick up the second or third time around.
Rewatching. That's a great excuse to indulge my favorite shows.
And as you get more confident, the guide suggests gradually leveling up the difficulty. You don't want to stay in your comfort zone forever.
So where do we go after those beginner-friendly sitcoms?
Well, they suggest trying movies with fast dialogue, like The Social Network or Suits. You could also try historical dramas or fantasy shows like Game of Thrones or The Witcher, which usually have more complex language. And eventually, you could even try watching news and talk shows like BBC News or The Daily Show. They use more formal language and discuss current events.
So it's all about pushing ourselves little by little to understand more and more challenging stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap. We learned that we should be picky about what we watch, choosing shows with clear dialogue that we're genuinely interested in and that have subtitles. We also talked about using those subtitles strategically, starting with English ones, slowly weaning ourselves off, and only resorting to native language subtitles in extreme cases.
And let's not forget the two-pass method.
Right. Watching once with subtitles to understand the story, and then again without them to focus on the language.
And remember, active listening is key. That means taking notes, pausing and repeating difficult parts, practicing shadowing, and trying to predict what will be said next.
We also talked about embracing all the different accents out there, and how movies and TV can help us get used to them. And if an accent is just too tough, transcripts can be a lifesaver.
Oh, and that cool technique of mimicking native speakers. Speech shadowing. Don't underestimate its power.
So true. And lastly, let's not forget to make our viewing more interactive. We can do that by turning scenes into mini quizzes, joining online discussions, or even using special language learning apps. The key is to be consistent, watch regularly, and gradually increase the difficulty as we go.
You've got it. What's so cool about all this is that you're not just improving your listening, you're also getting a real taste of English-speaking cultures. You know, their humor, their social customs, things you wouldn't necessarily get from a textbook.
That's what makes it so much more engaging and fun. So to all our listeners out there, we hope these tips inspire you to make your English learning journey both enjoyable and super effective. Give these techniques a try. We're confident you'll see amazing progress and gain a much deeper understanding of spoken English and all its nuances.
And to leave you with something to think about, try this. Pick a scene from a movie or show you really love. How could you use just one of the techniques we talked about today to analyze that scene this week and maybe discover something new you hadn't noticed before? Or think about all the different English accents you've heard. What do they tell you about the incredible diversity within the English language and the people who speak it around the world?
Food for thought, right? Until next time, happy watching and happy learning.
See you next time.